packs, you should have a therapy program which has been written by Cheska and myself, and that should tell you the aims that your child is working on. It should give some information about positioning, so where to put the switch. It should also give some information on what level of the switching progression map your child is working at, which Cheska will talk you through in a minute. And it will also tell you what equipment has been sent home. You should find that equipment is in your pack, and also some additional bits to help you work on those targets. And there's also an ideas handout which just details some extra ideas of how you might use switching alongside those bits of equipment that we've sent home.
Hi, so as part of the OT SALT switching packs, you might find some different switches get sent home, and we just wanted to reassure you that all the switches can look very different, but basically they all do the same thing. So they're all single action cause and effect buttons. A couple have voice outputs. These two are Big Macs. They look different, but they have exactly the same function. And the reason why we might send you different size switches is because your child might need a smaller one or a larger one. They might need one closer to the table to get their hand on so they don't have to lift it up as high. But we would have thought about the type of switch that we sent home individually for your child. So in your packs, you'll have noticed that we've put this diagram, and this is taken from the switch progression steps. And it basically looks at the developing skills and the different steps that children need to work on to move through it. So level number 1 is experimental learning, and that kind of encompasses children looking at the effect, listening to the effect, and responding in some way to the effect. So it's basically looking at, are they paying attention to what's going on? Are they engaged in the activity? Responding doesn't always have to be a positive response, but it's kind of showing that they're aware that the effect is happening. So we'd want them to kind of consolidate these skills in level 1 before they moved on to level 2 necessarily. Level 2 is make something happen, and there's different levels within that. So you've got press and hold, so that will be a child pressing a switch and holding it to cause an effect. Pressing and releasing, so knowing, oh, I have to take my hand off. And pressing a switch again, so I've pressed it, I've liked what happened, I want to press it again to make it happen again. And that's just making sure they've understood the basic cause and effect, and they're participating actively in that, even though they may need some level of prompting, and they've understood that something's happened and they want it to happen again. The third level is using 2 switches, and there's 2 different streams in that. So one is start and stop, so you might use 2 switches, one to start an activity, one to stop an activity. And the other is this or that, so that will be 2 switches doing 2 different things. So like we talked about with power link boxes, you might have one switch that works, one switch that doesn't. Like we saw with the Paw Patrol car, you might have one switch that makes the car go forward, one switch that makes it turn around. 2 or more switches are often quite common in powered mobility, so if your child's used that at school, they might have been practicing with that as well. And that's just understanding that 2 switches can cause 2 different effects and make 2 different things happen. So that's why it's kind of higher up on that skill level.
So in your switching program, you'll find our green mead levels of prompting, and this is something that the therapy team have put together with the teaching team, and it's something that we use across most of our activities at school, and it basically helps us identify what level of independence a child has in achieving a skill. So this is something that you can use to be recording progress with switch use at home. So you basically have the most level of prompting at the bottom, and you want to work up to the top to least level of prompting to be independent. So independent would be the activity stops, the child recognises that, and then they seek out the switch themselves and press it without any help from you. Most level of prompting would be the activity stops, the child hasn't noticed this, they're not seeking out the activity, so you need to do full physical prompting by taking their hand, placing it on the switch and releasing it. A partial prompt, which is the next one up from the bottom, might be that you just take them from the shoulder and then from the elbow, and then they touch the switch and release it themselves. A direct model would be you showing them what needs to be done and then they copy you. Gestural cue, you might tap the switch or look towards it. A direct verbal prompt. You'll see in our top tips video that we mentioned trying not to use verbal prompting because we don't want to be saying things like press the switch, touch the switch, find the button, because those are then going to become the cue that the child learns to press the switch, to seek it out, rather than the cue being the activity stopped. So try not to give verbal prompts about touching the switch, but maybe say, oh, it stopped. Do you want more? Responding to a question, oh, it stopped. What do you need to do next? And independent, like we said, is that they find it themselves.
So here are some of our top tips for switching. So one of them is mix up the activities. So it can be really easy to think that a child can't engage in a switching activity, but it might be because they're bored if they've got one switch toy that they've been practicing with all the time. So maybe think about other ways you can embed it into your life. If you saw Hayley's video, thinking about requesting more in lots of different scenarios like play or watching TV or watching videos on YouTube, and just think about mixing it up. Our other top tip is thinking about the position of the switch. So it's really, really important that when you're doing the switching activities, you don't take the switch away and then bring it back in when it's time to press it. Because your child is then responding to the prompt of something being placed in front of them, rather than understanding, oh, the effect has stopped, I have to press it now. So it's really important during an activity that wherever the switch is set up, so some children might have it in the middle, some children might have it on the left or the right, or attached in some way to their chair with a mount. But however your child's setup is, you just want to make sure that the switch is left there for the whole activity. One of the other things that Hayley's mentioned in her video is about thinking about the language that you use around switching, and try if you can not to say things like, oh, press the switch, touch the button, because you want to be thinking about what the activity is. So, oh, we want more, stopped, it's finished, and try and think about language like that instead, and that will really promote what's happening in the activity as well as promoting core vocab opportunities. Another thing to think about is your position when you're helping your child. If your hands are near, the child might think that actually you're pressing the switch or you're having an impact on the effect and it's not them. So even if your child needs physical prompting, it's quite good to actually stay a little bit away, wait for them to have the chance to try it themselves. You know, some children need up to 10-15 seconds to process what they need to do next before then coming in and helping them. Because they might not be able to distinguish your hand here, their hand there, and who's actually causing the effect. One of the things that we can see quite a lot is children button bashing. So you might see lots of pressing like this, and that's because, you know, the switch clicks. It's a fun effect, you can feel it, but we'd say that's not what we're really aiming for in terms of cause and effect. It might be that your child is liking playing with the switch rather than paying attention to the effect. So we have different ways to deal with that. We might need to give them a different switch, one with less click, less feedback. We have softy tops, which are foam tops you can put on the top, which stop that clicking and feedback. It might be about giving them a verbal prompt, but it's something to look out for, and definitely let us know if you think that's a problem, and we can talk to you about sorting that out.